What is the most awkward or embarrassing thing you've ever experienced? Now, I've had many. I'm going to share one with you, and this is really, really embarrassing, but I'm going to share it for a purpose. And I would love for you to pay attention and as I'm talking, just kind of think about your most awkward or one of them, right? We have awkward experiences all the time. But when I was in high school, my mom used to pick me up after school, right? Drop me off, pick me up. And one day in particular, I had like a really rough day. You know, one of those days when you're just exhausted at the end of the day, and it's been just one of those days where you're like, oh gosh, what just happened? Why was this day? I'm just ready to get it done, get it over with, just go home and be done. And so my mom used to drive this golden colored, like champagne colored Mitsubishi Mirage hatchback. And as I was walking out of school in this thought process of I'm just exhausted, I just want to get home, I see her car parked right at the front of the school, right outside of the gate, main gate. And I was like, yes, she's already here. I can just get in the car and go. So I'm just focused on getting in the car, getting home. I open the door, I sit down, and then I hear this manly voice go, girl, I think you're in the wrong car. I got into the wrong car. Like I literally opened the door, sat, and it was a strange man sitting right there next to me. And I turned bright red. I couldn't bounce out of that seat fast enough. I just darted out of the car. And thankfully my mom's car was a couple cars away and I was able to get in the car and get home. But that just cemented like the rough day, right? Now to make matters worse, the next day I get to school. And my best friend at the time is talking to this girl that I don't know. And as I approach, I hear the girl going, yeah, so this strange girl got in my dad's car yesterday. And I'm like, oh. I was, needless to say, extremely mortified. But as I approached, I was like, yeah, that might have been me. And what started as a very embarrassing situation that I'm not gonna lie, I was really embarrassed about. And when I actually met her dad and all these things, it was really awkward. But it turned out to be one of the most amazing blessings of my life because that girl and I are still friends to this day. She was among my very best friends all through high school. And actually when I started college, we were able to spend a Thanksgiving together and just we spent a lot of time together. And I love her to death. And if we hadn't had that moment, that experience, the connection might not have been there. So why am I saying all of this? Because very often in life, we try to avoid awkward situations thinking that they're just hard to manage, right? They're hard to get past and hard to get over. But behind every awkward situation, there is a possibility for an authentic connection. And that's what I want us to focus on today, is on how do we turn those awkward encounters into authentic connections, and what is the power behind authentic connections to help propel us and move us forward. See, over the next few episodes, what I want to do is give you some of the tools and some of the ideas and the strategies that will help you move forward in the direction of your calling and your dreams, that will help you get it done and get it done as quickly as possible. So today we're going to focus on authentic connections. How do we build them? Why are they so important? Why do we usually struggle with them? And what to do today to start creating them. Are you ready? Let's go. Hi, welcome to Sincerely Speaking. I'm Marcy Amaro, your self-leadership coach. Now what that means is I'm here to help you rediscover your calling, tap into your greatest potential and strengths, and eliminate those things that keep getting in your way and in the way of your success. So whatever success looks like to you, whether it is in your career, in your business, in your relationships, or in your life in general, I'm here to help you get out of your own way, remove the obstacles, and elevate all of your life to the next level. If you're ready to see everything that you're capable of and see what your life can look like, I invite you to head on over to marcyamaro.com and set up a 30-minute clarity and confidence call where we will talk about your mission, your vision, your goals, the things that you're here on this planet to create, what might be getting in the way up until now, and some actionable, amazing ways to get out of your own way, to eliminate all those obstacles and reach the level of success that you've been dreaming of. Are you ready? Are you ready for the next level? Then stick around to this conversation of Sincerely Speaking, and then head on over to marcyamaro.com and schedule your 30-minute call.
can't wait to meet you in person. Chat soon.
So why do we have these awkward encounters, right? I mean, sometimes it's just things that happen. And very often, actually, I found that most often than not, we feel very awkward around the situation, but most of the people around us are oblivious to the fact that something even happened that would make you think there was an awkward moment, right? But why do we enter into interactions with other people, or why do we start connections or conversations in a way that feels awkward, that makes us feel like we might not be doing something right, or like we might be messing things up before we even start, right? And we've all had that experience. I know for me, very often when I'm meeting someone new, especially because I tend to lean more towards the introverted side of things, when I'm meeting someone new and I know that it's about to happen, I spend a lot of time in my head thinking, oh, what do I say? How do I say it? What if they say this? What if this happens? What if this doesn't happen? And I start just envisioning, like imagining and worrying ahead of time without even having any reason to think of it, right? Like, if you hadn't caught on, and I've said this before, but fear is just imagination, or worry is just imagination placed in an idea that causes you fear, right? So it's just using your imagination for the non-productive or the least ideal instead of using it for the more ideal. So I do that all the time. I catastrophize. I go from 0 to 60 and I just spiral really quickly, right? So when I'm meeting someone new, I have all these ideas of what I would like it to look like, but I also have all these ideas of what I fear it might look like. And so very often when we approach these interactions, there's all these expectations and all these notions of how it should be, right? And one of the things that we do is we start thinking about, okay, what should I say? And one of the main reasons, and this is number one on why we have awkward conversations or connections, is because we are unsure of what to say. And we want to have a script and we want to play it out. And if you're anything like me, you like go back and forth and you like practice, rehearse the whole conversation in your head. And there are moments for rehearsing conversations, but not when you're first trying to connect with someone. When you're first trying to connect with someone, the worst thing that you can do is try to anticipate how they're going to react or what they're going to say. So one of the reasons why we experience this sense of awkwardness is because we're not sure what to say. So we are unsure of the message that we're trying to deliver. We're unsure of what we want to articulate and how we want to articulate. And that uncertainty leads us to feeling kind of like awkward because it's like, ooh, what do I say? What do I do? The other day we had a networking event. It was actually more than a networking event. It was networking and workshopping. And it was like this amazing event that we put together with a bunch of amazing women here locally where I live in West Palm Beach. But one of the girls' husbands, who I knew from before, came to help us out. And when he arrived, I went in for the hug. He went in for a high five. It was like, just like we couldn't connect. So we just started making fun of it. We were like, oh yeah, let's do the awkward clap. And right. And we just started making fun of it. And that was easier because I already knew him. But how often do we start a connection with this idea of I'm going to go in for the hug, but what if they don't, or whatever? One of the things that I've learned, and we're going to talk more about this in a minute, but one of the things that I have learned is that if you go in without any kind of anticipation, any kind of rehearsal, any kind of expectation other than I'm going to do my best to learn about this person, to be interested in this person, to see what they're all about, then things kind of happen. When things get really awkward is when you expect things to go a certain way and then they don't. Or you expect things to go a certain way and the other person has a completely different idea of how things are going to go, right? So the first thing that causes that awkward interaction is the uncertainty or the being unsure of your messaging and what you want to articulate. The second thing that causes a lot of awkwardness is being unaware of context, being unaware of your surroundings, like not really paying attention to what is going on. So you have someone who is in a conversation with someone else, and you decide to approach them at the moment when they're in the deepest part of the conversation. And everybody looks at you like, what are you doing here? Right? That feels awkward. Or you are looking to have a conversation with someone, but they're distracted by a lot of different things, or the environment is not conducive to it, right? Or there's like a lot of distractions, period, going on around you. And so that's hard because you're trying to break through the distractions with someone that you don't really know. And we're going to talk a little bit about some of those things in a minute. But the main thing when it comes to the context is trying to minimize the noise if you can. And if you can't, being really aware of what is happening. And the easiest way to ease awkwardness around something, believe it or not, is usually to just call it out, to make a disclosure of some sort and be like, hey, I know you're talking, but I just wanted to hug you, or I just wanted to say hello, or I know that there's a lot of noise, but can I just introduce myself, or whatever? Like, call it out. Name the elephant in the room, name the thing that might make the interaction awkward, and then everybody's going to be aware of the fact that this thing is going on, but you're still making an effort, right? And we will talk more about that in a minute. I just wanted to not forget about that. And then finally, when you're unwilling to stand for something, that's what makes awkwardness sometimes too. When you're unwilling to stand for something, when you are so afraid to offend the other person that you're filtering everything you say, that you're walking on eggshells and pandering to whatever it is that you think they want to hear. When you're in a position where you are awkwardly just trying to be a yes man or a yes woman or a yes person, when you're awkwardly trying to make sure that they're not offended by anything you say, you are hyper aware of everything that you say because you want it to land well. And that leads you to being inauthentic and weird, frankly, in the way you're approaching the conversation. Then that damages the possibility of having an authentic connection, right? So, what do we do instead? How do we move from these awkward interactions, these awkward conversations, to making authentic, meaningful connections? Sorry, I'm going to give you three things that when we work on these things and we understand how to get there, then we can move the connection further and we can create this authentic connection that can last and that can grow and that can be nurtured. The first one is assertive articulation, right? Assertive articulation or assertive messaging. I'm trying to do like the alliteration thing, and I like alliteration because I think it's easier to remember. But anyway, assertive articulation. So, what do I mean by that? What I mean is you say what you mean and you mean what you say. Now, let me make a distinction and let me make it really clear. That doesn't mean that you spit out every thought that comes to your head. There should be a filter between your brain and your mouth that filters some thoughts that don't need to be articulated, right? And we all know we have them, right? We can be, no, it's not that we can be, we are, as human beings, we are judgmental, we prejudge, we are critical of ourselves and others. We tend to have a negativity bias, which means that anything we're told, we see the bad side of it first. Plus, we tend to have this competitive nature that wants to one up everybody around us, right? So if we let assertiveness be an excuse for letting anything that comes into our brain pop out of our mouth, we're going to get ourselves in trouble. And that's not what I'm talking about, right? We're not talking about being blatantly rude. I'm not talking about stepping over people and bulldozing people. I'm not talking about my way or the highway or thinking that you're always right. That's not what I'm thinking about. In fact, those things will cause not just awkwardness, but will cause disconnection and will cause people to not want to be around you and to distrust you in many, 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 many ways, right? But what I'm talking about is also not being a doormat and not being, like I said before, a yes person who's just trying to see how you can pander to everybody and cater to everybody's ideas and views and be in line with everybody. That's not a good thing either, right? So what assertive articulation means is I understand the message that I want to get out in this particular moment, and what I say matches what I want to say, right? And I mean the things that I say. Yes. So if you're in a conversation where you disagree with someone, you are able to disagree and you're able to state your thoughts and your views on that thing because that's where you stand. But you're also open to knowing that other people will then, in turn, have the opportunity and the right to express their views and assertively say when they disagree with you or the things that they would add or subtract from whatever it is that the conversation is saying, right? Or that you're saying in the conversation. So basically, what assertive articulation boils down to is understanding that you have rights, but that also means that the other person or people in the conversation have rights as well. And if everybody's rights are to be enforced and respected, then everybody gets to express their points of view honestly and openly, right? Again, not trying to be a bulldozer, not trying to offend anybody, but openly and honestly in a way that allows everybody to be heard and allows everybody to express themselves and to be seen, right? So when you approach any new environment or any new connection from a perspective of, I'm going to assertively articulate my point of view, then you don't have to worry so much about what topics to talk about or how to initiate the conversation or whatever, because you get to be upfront and you get to be honest with a person, right? If you're in a networking space, like I think I've told the story before, my second networking event, I made it a point. My goal was to shake everybody's hand. It was a smaller event, it was like 20 people, but my goal was to shake everybody's hands and introduce myself to everybody, right? At the beginning, it was really awkward to even think about it because, like I said before, I tend to lean towards the more introverted side of things. And so thinking about shaking 20 people's hands was like, oh, this is not good, right? But then what I did was, as I approached people, I literally said, I made it my goal today that I would shake everybody's hands here and introduce myself. So, hi, I'm Marcy Amaro. Who are you? Or, hi, I'm Marcy Amaro. So good to meet you. And that opened the door for all these other conversations because then people would be like, yeah, I feel you. It can be so awkward, right? Or good for you. That's awesome. Yeah, my name is so and so. And out of that interaction, I got a bunch of great connections that are still part of my network today and that I value highly. But what opened the possibility for that was that instead of making what I was feeling bad or negative or incorrect in any way, shape, or form, I used it to assertively say exactly what was in my heart and to be honest and genuine with the people in that group. And so they valued that. And that opened the possibility for a lot of other things. So I'm not saying that that's necessarily the approach every time, but more often than not, if you are just honest with the person. Now, obviously, if you're looking at someone that you consider beautiful or handsome, and you're like, "Ooh, I want to marry that person," don't go and say, "Hey, I'm introducing myself because I want to marry you." They will run in the opposite direction. But for the most part, if you have a good reason, right, for the awkwardness or a good reason to approach them, then just lead with that. Right? Like it's okay to say, these networking events can feel kind of awkward, can't they? Hi, I'm Marcy, and I'm trying to make it less awkward for both of us. Whatever, right? Use your honest expression and your honest articulation and be assertive about it. Don't let anybody make you feel like what you're saying is wrong if you know that you're coming from a good place, right? So that's the first one, assertive articulation. And there's obviously a lot of other things that go into it. How do you prep that message? How do you make it so that it really conveys everything that you want to say? How do you make sure that it landed with the other person? How do you handle when the other person disagrees with you? There's a lot of other things that go into this assertive articulation piece. But if you understand that going in there, saying what you mean and meaning what you say, it's the best and most impactful way to start this approach, then you can go ahead and feel free to do and say what is in your heart to do and say. Now, I don't know what kind of childhood you had or what kind of child you were, but I was the kid that during recess would either stay in the classroom if I was allowed to, or if I was forced to go into the playground, I would sit in a little corner by myself, usually with a book, even though I was most of the time not reading, I was just pretending to read and just trying to hide in a corner, right? Now, every once in a while I was sitting there in my little corner, some good-hearted kid would come over. Now, I know a lot of the times it was the teacher saying, go get Marcy, right? But either way, sometimes a good-hearted kid would come over and invite me over to play. Now, those days were absolutely the happiest days of my life because I was invited to be part of what was going on around me that I didn't feel qualified to be part of, right? Now, every once in a while, and this was most definitely the times when the teacher would be like, go invite her to play. I would be invited to play, but then I wouldn't be allowed to really participate. And those days were even worse than the days when I just sat in the corner and nobody invited me to play. Because then I felt like I was pulled in just to be placed in a more awkward position just to be embarrassed, so to speak, right? So why am I saying this? Because after you understand that assertive articulation is the way in, effortless engagement happens when you do two things. When you invite people into your world, right? Like the kid that would invite me to play. But most importantly, when you use empathy, warmth, and compassion to help them want to stay, to help them see the value in being part of that space with you, right? Even if it's just the two of you. So, how do you do this effortless engagement? I want you to think for a little bit about what it's like to run into someone that you really like. Maybe even a good friend that you haven't seen for a while. Maybe running into your favorite sibling unexpectedly, or maybe being surprised by someone that you really love showing up somewhere where you didn't expect them, right? How does your heart feel? What do you do with your body and with your emotions? How do you act? How do you react? You get all relaxed. It feels natural. It feels effortless. There might be an initial jolt of, oh, it's them. They're here, right? And there might be that initial heart thumping of, okay, what do I do now? Because you didn't expect to see them. But once you settle into the conversation, you don't have to put any effort. You don't have to pretend. You don't have to put on any masks. You don't have to try. You're just connecting with that person and trying to take it all in, especially if it's someone that you don't see very often. You're like, oh, I don't want to miss anything. I want to notice every nuance. I want to hear everything they have to say. I want to ask questions so that I can make sure that by the time we're done together, that I take with me as much of this person as I can, and that I move forward with enough memories to last me until I see them again, right? So that is the second stage, is creating that sense of effortless engagement that comes from focusing on the other person and being interested in them rather than you trying to draw attention and interest towards you. So this is one of the main errors that we make a lot of the times when we're trying to create authentic connections, is we think that if we're going to be authentic, then that means that we have to let them know as much as we can about us. We have to show the interesting parts of us, and we have to make sure that they see the value in being part of our world. So we want to give them as much as we can so that they take all this stuff. What tends to happen, though, is that we overload and overwhelm them with too much. Plus, putting all the focus on us makes us seem almost selfish, which we are. I mean, human beings are, but makes us feel selfish makes us appear selfish to the point where the other person is like, well, they were just interested in themselves, so they can just keep talking to themselves. They don't need me, right? But when you are focusing on the other person and focusing on being interested in them and everything that they have to offer, you're asking meaningful, poignant questions. You're listening with intention. And the intention is to understand as much as you can about them. And you're using what they tell you as springboards for more interesting questions, or more questions that show that you're interested, is what I meant to say. More questions that draw out of them their uniqueness and everything that they have to offer. They will walk away thinking, oh my gosh, that person is fabulous. They're fantastic. And they won't even be able to maybe pinpoint why, but they will be so incredibly ready to connect with you again because they feel welcome. They feel taken in. They feel seen and heard. And they feel like you care. And when those things are in place, the engagement and the interaction is effortless. You don't have to work hard at it, because all you have to do is pay attention and really genuinely be interested. And if you're trying to make a connection with someone, I hope it's because you're interested in them and what they have to offer, right? So when you do that, when you flip the script from me and trying to be interesting to being interested and showing that I care about you and that I want to learn more about you, the effortless engagement takes place, right? Now, the last bit, and so going into how to create that authentic, powerful connection starts with assertive articulation, continues with effortless engagement, and then finally, it's inspirational influence. Inspirational influence. And here's where it might get a little unpopular in the way that I approach things, right? A lot of people out there think that if you're going to create connections, you have to refrain from saying anything that might be considered offensive or that might trip the other person up or make them feel like maybe I don't want to be with this person or whatever, anything that might be considered or construed as less than positive, right? And what that does, though, it keeps you in what we were talking about at the beginning. It keeps you walking on eggshells and pandering and not taking a stance for anything. And that is not what you want. If what you're looking for are authentic connections, which are important, then you need to stand for something and stand firmly for that something. Now, I'm not saying that you're going to start your conversation with this person and you're automatically going to be like, no, I am a this. And because I believe this, you need to agree with me or bleh. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is don't disguise what you stand for and be willing to be a thought leader, right? Thought leaders say and articulate what other people are thinking but are too afraid to say. That's what thought leadership is. So when you can stand in a room and say, you know what, you guys think this, but the truth is that, you're being a thought leader if you're doing it from a heart of growth and progress and really standing for what you believe in, right? Not as a bulldozing act where you are actively trying to offend people, but because you feel, you truly believe that you standing for something is part of your values, it's part of who you are, and it's also going to open the door for those around you who agree with you and who believe with you, but might be too afraid or too shy to say something, to stand with you or even stand behind you and go with you in the direction that you're taking them with taking that stance, right? So what this looks like when you're creating authentic connections is understanding that not everybody's going to agree with you. There are some things that are non-negotiable for you, and in that same way, there are some things that are going to be non-negotiable for the other person. If at any point you disagree in the non-negotiables, then you're better off knowing it sooner rather than later and making a decision about whether that connection is the kind of connection that you want to maintain and the kind of interaction and company that you want to keep, right? So we are not meant to be with everybody. Not everybody's meant to like us. And we are not, like my mom says, we're not $20 bills to be liked by everybody. We're just not. And the best thing that you can do for yourself and for the other person is to not disguise what is really non-negotiable and essential for you so that the other person can make an informed decision about whether you are the person that they want to hang with, whether you are the person that they want to follow, whether you are the person that they want that connection with, and vice versa. You also get the opportunity to make a decision about whether this person is the person that you want to make the connection with, right? So the part of authentic in authentic connections has to do with not disguising who you are and taking a stand when you need to, right? Like I've said it a million and a half times, and I will continue to say it because this is a non-negotiable for me, right? I am a follower of Christ. I am a Christian, not in the religion sense, in the relationship sense. And that's another thing that I stand really firmly about, right? I'm not all about one size fits all cookie cutter religion. I'm about relationship, and Christ and the Holy Spirit tell you where you need to go and how you need to follow. And the basis of it all is love. That's me, right? And that's where I stand. But I have plenty of connections and friends who are not Christian. However, we are not stepping on each other's toes about our belief systems and about the way we operate. And we respect the way we operate. Like if I'm talking to them and I mention God, they're not offended. If they're talking to me and they mention the universe, I'm not going to attack them either. Do I agree? No. But I don't need to attack their belief system in order to be able to collaborate and do some other things, right? But they know exactly where I stand. Now, there are some people who, the moment I say Christ, will run in the opposite direction. Okay, bye bye. If my faith offends you, you don't need to be around me and I don't need to be around you. See what I'm trying to say? In the same way that I don't drink alcohol. And this is not anything like I don't think alcohol is bad. I just don't, right? This event that I told you that we had champagne and we had sparkling wine and all these things there. And people were drinking and they were having fun. They were having a good time. I was having my sparkling water and my soda, and I was perfectly content with that. And that didn't impede us from interacting or from sharing the space. I did not think anything less of them because they were nothing, right? So I'm trying to help you see the distinction, right? But the moment anybody, like if anybody stands in front of me and says, you know what, I think family is stupid. I don't think anybody should do anything for family. And I think that we should just let the government take care of all the kids and not even worry about them. That person is not going to be in my circle. I'm not going to let that person be in my circle at all because family is one of my key values, right? So it's important to not try to pander. And I've said that word several times. Don't try to pander or cater to everybody around you. Stand for what you stand for. The right people will either agree with you and resonate with you, or at least respect you enough to not be offended by it. The wrong people will flee and run, and you want to let them flee and run in the opposite direction. That's what it is. And at the beginning, when I started my business, I wanted everybody to like me. And anytime anybody posted anything that I was just so devastated when people disagreed with me or thought I was wrong or made any comment that could be considered less than ideal or less than positive. Right now, it's not that I don't care, it's that I don't even look. Because if you are offended by me or the way that I present myself, then you're welcome to go find someone else who doesn't make you feel that way. And you deserve to find someone else who doesn't make you feel that way. In that same way, I deserve to be surrounded by people who resonate with me, who value what I share, and who allow me the space to have my faith and my beliefs and my values without trying to change me. Because if you're trying to change me, then you don't need to be following me, right? So just to recap, when we want to move out of those awkward connections and awkward conversations and create authentic connections and benefit from the power of those authentic connections, which will allow you to move up and bring with you all those people that get to share in that elevation and share in that new growth and share in that new spotlight or whatever the case may be. I need to move into those authentic connections by first having assertive articulation of your messaging, which means say what you mean what you say, and it has to start with being clear on what you mean, right? Secondly, create that effortless engagement by being interested more than you are trying to be interesting, by focusing on them and what they stand for, what they bring to the table, what they want to share, getting to know them as deeply as you can, and as creating that connection in a way that allows them to feel comfortable in sharing the truth of who they are. And then finally, step into inspirational influence by standing for something. Stand for something unashamedly and unapologetically, and allow those people around you to benefit from your thought leadership when you articulate those things that they've been thinking but have been too afraid to say, or maybe didn't even have the right words to express it, right? And stepping into that thought leadership will allow those people who are meant to be around you, who you're meant to serve, to find you further, faster, and to connect with you further, right? But it will also repel and remove out of your circle the people that are not meant to be there. And like Jasmine Star would say, you're not for everyone, boo, right? So we're not for everybody. We just aren't. And you get to decide who you keep in your circle, but you also get to bring in and attract the people that will resonate with you by being fully authentic and standing for what you stand for. Well, I really hope this has been helpful. I hope that you will implement all these things and start creating those authentic connections. And I look forward to our connection growing each week here on Sincerely Speaking. Chat with you soon. Bye.
I hope you have found as much value and impact in this conversation as we found in creating it for you. If you have, then go ahead and share this with someone else in your life that you know might find it valuable. And in the meantime, don't forget about my offer to head on over to marciamaro.com and schedule your free 30-minute clarity and confidence call. We will talk through all your dreams, all your plans, all your goals, the things that might be getting in the way. And if it makes sense for both of us, I might invite you to join me in one of my programs or one of my coaching packages, but there's no obligation, and I promise you that this will be the best 30 minutes you've spent in a long, long time. So again, head on over to marciamaro.com, set up that time to chat, and I will see you on the other side. And in the meantime, share, subscribe, like, and I will see you next week here on Sincerely Speaking. Thank you.